Hey everyone, it's Andy here. In today's video, I'm just going to cover a quick update on what's happening with stimulus payments and tax breaks going into 2023. This is a topic I get a lot of questions around, so I thought I'd pull together an entire video that talks a lot about some of these key stimulus and tax break items. As always, if you like what you see here, please hit the like button and keep subscribing to get more videos like this. The big topics in the last 24 months have been around stimulus checks, the advanced child tax credit, earned income tax credit expansion, a lot of inflation relief checks or at least economic relief checks paid, and then food stamp expansions as well, including the pandemic food stamp program that boosted the allocations people were getting. So these are the things that a lot of people ask about, what's going to happen to these and if there's any changes. So I am going to talk a lot about these in the video. You're going to have some specific sections where I'll go into more details on what's happening with this. But just a quick summary, there is no new federally funded stimulus checks coming in 2023. There were none this year, just due to the rising inflation and lack of political will. There's not going to probably be another stimulus check that is federally funded by Congress or the administration next year. But what the IRS recently came and said was that there is still 9 million unclaimed checks. Now, I'll talk shortly about how you can go claim this or to see if you are one of those folks there as well. The good thing is a lot of the focus of support has shifted to the states, and states have issued various stimulus checks and tax rebates to support middle to low income families, and potentially more are coming in the next year, especially as we get into a recession or tough economic situations in 2023. And I'll talk a little bit about which states have issued checks, a lot of them, what's coming, and that comes up later on in the video. And then again, I talked a little about this recently. The earned income tax credit, which goes to nearly 40 million families, has been adjusted again up in 2023, so that'll be good, and I'll touch on that as well shortly. And one thing a lot of people have been asking, there is no advanced child tax credit like there was last year and the beginning of this year. That has been taken away. It was proposed in the Biden bill a few months ago, but it got dropped. So it goes back to its normal program where it's claimed on your tax return as a refundable credit. And I'll briefly touch about food stamps, SNAP payments, which are supplementary nutritional assistance program payments that have also increased for 2023, and those are in effect from now because that fiscal year starts a bit sooner. So I'll touch on that as well, and you can see a bit more about these things coming up. So touching on economic impact payments or stimulus checks, and there was three of them paid, and a lot of people asked if there'll be a fourth one, and as I said, unlikely to be a fourth one anytime soon, at least at a federal level. But the thing is, the IRS recently came out and said that they've been sending letters to over 9 million potentially eligible families. Now, there have been a lot of payments around stimulus checks, the expanded earned income tax credit, child tax credits, and other benefits. But the key is you need to go and claim these. And generally, the most common way to claim these is via your tax return, where if you also make certain above 70-ish thousand, I think it is what now, you can actually file it for free. And I'll post a link to a couple of tax providers I recommend that are free to file with. And if you have a below that income, you won't have to make any payments. But the point is, the IRS is proactively, as mandated by the administration and Congress, they are sending letters to a lot of families that, hey, you may be eligible based on their previous tax returns or filings that they've found. But the key is, and I'll put a link to the IRS page where there's a summary of all this, but you'll see here, the key is you got to file a federal tax return for the year the stimulus check was paid. So for example, if it's 2020, you need to file a 2020 tax return. In 2021, you'll need to file a 21 tax return. Now, if you don't owe taxes, there's no penalty for filing late. It's only if you may have a failure to file penalty, but that's being waived in a lot of cases. But generally speaking, it makes a lot of sense. If you could be eligible for these, go back and file a free return, and there's a good chance you'll get this, right? And even if your amount could be even more, even if you filed it before, maybe you're eligible for more because something changed in your situation that you didn't know about before. But the key is to go in and file a tax return, and the IRS will be sending letters to a lot of families, so don't ignore that and don't be scared of another IRS tax letter. In terms of food stamps, or as it's known, the SNAP program, a lot of the allotments changed. So the allotments are what people can get up to a maximum amount, less any less 30% of the income they have to deduct from the maximum amount as part of the program, because it assumes people have to cover 30% of the cost with their own income. So the maximum you can get is based on your household size. So you can see here between 2022 and 2023, the amounts have gone up by about 7 to 10%. So it definitely will help a lot more families who rely on food stamps. Seniors and disabled actually have less stringent requirements to get this. And I'll post a link to a recent video. You can see it up here as well on the increases here. And the benefits are in effect now. They started in October. So you should be seeing the larger amounts loaded onto your debit card to claim those as well. And this will act like a mini stimulus for a lot of people, especially those people who rely on this to make ends meet. The other one, which I talked about earlier, the earned income tax credit. So you can see here, it's gone up a lot. Last year it was about 530-ish, so it's jumped up a fair bit. Again, I've posted a link to a recent video on this so you can get more details. But the fact is, if you have 2 or 3 children, even if you're single and no children, you can still get this credit. But it really kicks in for those with 1, 2, or 3 children, where you can get up to $7,430 as a earned income tax credit. Again, this is going to have to be filed when you file your tax return. You need to earn a certain amount of money to get the maximum amount. Now, if you earn $1 to this earned income base amount, you'll still get a partial credit. But to get the maximum credit, you need to have met this basic earned income amount, because it is an earned income tax credit. It's meant to reward low-income workers. And generally, it'll start phasing out depending on your filing status. It'll start phasing out, for example, if you have 2 children, it starts phasing out at $21,560 if you're a single filer, or $28,120. So think of that as the top level to get the maximum credit. And then once you start earning up to like $52,918 or $59,478, it'll start phasing out. And above those levels, based on your filing status, it'll mean no credit. But this is a pretty big credit. A lot of people claim it. It also does delay tax refunds. Every year, the PATH Act causes issues with the earned income tax credit. So it's worth claiming, but expect your refund could be delayed by 2 to 3 weeks if you do claim this credit. The big area I want to talk about in this video was state stimuluses and tax rebate checks. So as I mentioned before, even though there's no federal stimulus check or an economic impact payment, a lot of states have now taken on the burden of making these payments, given a lot of the funding they got from the federal government through the different COVID stimulus bills. So states have used this money. They have a bit of discretion on how to do this. There's certain rules, but basically they can either issue stimulus checks or tax rebates for people who filed a return. Again, you'll see that theme. You do need to file a state tax return and obviously a federal return to get a lot of these, but a lot of states have already been paying this out. Millions of Americans should have already seen these payments. I'll talk about some of the states here that have already been making this payment. I apologize, the text may be small, so you can zoom in here or pause the video. But a lot of these states have been paying it, multiple payments now as well. For example, California has now what they're calling the middle class refund. Last year was the Golden State stimulus checks. So they've been paid over the last 18 months. And so now people should start seeing 200 to 1,050 payments based on filing status and income and how many dependents they have. And that's a theme that you'll see. Everything's based on those, including residency status. And I expect that as more of these as the economy slows down, a lot of these states will start potentially paying out more, because they do have a fair bit of budget surplus from the federal funding, plus also their tax revenues have been higher as the economy was very strong in 2021 with a lot of the growth there. Now, Colorado has also started paying what they call a cashback bill. This is a tax rebate of $750 for individual filers or $1,500 for joint filers. Again, all these programs, I'll post a link in the description below for where you can get more information, but a lot of them you should just go to the state revenue site or the state tax agency, which will give you all the eligibility criteria. Florida also paid a $450 one-time check for family caregivers and all those providing assistance as well. So this was helpful to a lot of folks. About 60,000 people benefited from this. Georgia had tax refunds, $250 to $500 based on filing status as well to support folks. And again, based on their state income filings from the prior year were used for this. So all of these are based on your prior year or your estimated current year tax returns. Again, so that's how they figure these things. Illinois had a family relief plan, and they provided a gas tax relief, which a lot of states did as well. And I have another video. I'll post a link to that up here. But then also they provided tax rebate checks of $50 to $300 as well for those that filed in Illinois. Indiana had a one-time check of $125 that's already been paid, and there's another $225 stimulus check that's being proposed right now. It hasn't passed. The governor is not so much for it. Massachusetts also provided approximately $250 tax refund. Again, this was based on 7% of folks' state income tax payment, so you get a refund because they have a fund that they have to mandatory pay out. So people should start seeing this. And again, some of these payments may happen again this year in 2022. So when you file your 2023 return, you could potentially see these checks if you missed them, or if you're due for new ones, you should be able to claim them. Again, I'll stress, look at your state's website. I'll keep updating, providing videos here and emails and links so you can subscribe by the options below, but I'll keep updating this as more states come there, and I have a full article that talks about every state in a bit more detail. New Jersey has $500 middle class tax rebates, and these are ongoing. I expect these to be paid in 2023. There's also a proposal for a $1,500 property tax rebate. That's still pending. That's obviously a big amount given how high property taxes are in New Jersey. Virginia has already made $250 to $500 for single and married filers tax rebates. Those payments came out a few months ago, and I think a lot of folks have seen those. Again, you can claim those by filing a Virginia tax return if you actually are eligible, or potentially claim them on next year's tax return as well. And then there's a lot of other states with similar tax rebate or stimulus programs, probably too many to list here, but Connecticut, Hawaii, Idaho, Maine, and New Mexico and South Carolina all have stimulus or tax rebate programs. Again, I'll post a link in the description to some articles with more information. I also say look at your state's tax or revenue website. You can Google that to find specific eligibility. And in most cases, if you file a return, you'll have got these payments automatically. There's nothing more for you to do. But if you haven't, you can follow up. There's ways to go back and try claim any missing payments. And if you post a comment on the video below, I will try and respond to that as well with more information. If all this was useful to you, please hit the like button. Really helps this video get out more and people can see what they may be missing out on. And keep subscribing to get more videos like this. Thanks, everyone. Bye.